Hey everyone, my name is Patrick, and thank you for joining us on Create, Post, Repeat, a podcast all about the content creation journey. Today I get to speak to a new friend named Taylor. Taylor describes himself as an internet comedian, and he says his words that he loves to do pranks, but he doesn't like the way pranks are normally done online. He says they offend people, they bother people, they're meant to get in people's faces and annoy them and make them angry. His pranks deal with something very innocent and actually very natural: farts. Taylor created a channel called Humor Bagel where he makes people laugh by publicly farting or creating fake farts. You know what? I'm going to let him explain it. Let's get into the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. As you know, I am Patrick, and I am here with my new friend as of a few seconds ago, Taylor, who you may know as Humor Bagel on all of the social things. How are you doing, man?
Hello. Sorry, it's hard to hear you over the roaring applause. Man,
yes.
What'd you say?
I need the sound effect, you know?
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm jealous of your setup. Your camera looks so crisp and clean, and I'm just using my phone here.
That's fine. You don't need to give any caveats here, man. Like when I'm interviewing a star, I have to elevate myself somehow. And if a few lights and camera will do it, I'm gonna take that when I can. It's a treat to have you, man. I have a thought. I have a feeling of how I would describe what you do. But before I give my thoughts, I want you to tell people, would you just kind of give us the description of, this is what I do, this is what my content is about, and we'll take it from there.
Well, yes, that is an interesting question for me to answer. I usually tell people, when I tell people one thing, I have to then explain it for 5 minutes. So I've done that so many times, which I don't mind doing, but I usually just say I'm an internet comedian, which I steal that from creators who I'm super inspired by. Rhett and Link of Good Mythical Morning. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Oh yeah,
absolutely.
But they say they are internet comedians, and I was like, I think that they're golden proof that grown men can do silly things on the internet, and they are internet comedians. So, internet comedian or content creator, or we'll fill in the blank. I don't know.
Yeah. I think, when it comes to, I am a small time aspiring content creator. I've got some growth going on. I've got some, things I'm working on, but I have a full-time job. I'm doing content creation on the side, but this is what you do full-time, correct?
Yes.
And what was that? If I don't want to put like the cart before the horse or anything, but at what point in your creation journey were you like, this is my job, this is what I do, this is what I'm waking up planning around, etc.?
Yeah, that was a huge moment for me, and something that I never in a million years thought would happen. So it's crazy, but it's probably craziest to me that I can say that. It wasn't until maybe like 2019 or so when I started being like, man, I need to pay taxes on this stuff. And in like 2020, and this is sort of like the end of like a long journey of making videos, but the moment for me was I had a definitive moment where I was like, you know what, I've been making these videos, building a little community around people who like to follow my silly little shenanigans, and there came a point where it was undeniable of like, okay, what am I doing with this? And it's a long story, but basically I made the scary leap of faith when I realized I could make more doing this than I did at my full-time job at the time.
Wow.
And so I made the leap of faith, and and this may be shocking to a lot of people. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know if anyone cares. But I didn't do it full time until about a year and a half ago.
Wow.
And then I made the scary leap, the scariest thing I've ever done. Well, maybe moving to New York was the scariest thing I've ever done, but this is a close second. And then to my utter shock, like after a year, I made more than I would have at my job, which is like, it's not about the money, but a big part of that to me was the money. But I had to be able to like provide for myself. But a big part of it to me was like, well, I love doing this. I never thought in a million years I'd be able to do it full time. And here we are today, and it's crazy.
Well, you and I, okay, so I assumed this given the videos I've seen on your channel and on Instagram and things like that. But you and I are both New Yorkers. Where do you live in New York?
Oh yeah, I live in Manhattan.
Okay.
So yeah.
What part? What part?
South Harlem, so it's like right above Central Park.
Yeah.
I think people hear Harlem and they think like, oh, big, bad, scary things from movies. But the more like central you get into Harlem, or the more east in Harlem, it gets maybe a little bit more like that. But it's a good area in Harlem.
Yeah. So I lived on 107 in Central Park West. I had friends that lived at like 111.
Oh, yeah.
And so I know that area really well. I lived in Upper East. I lived in Wash Heights. I lived down in Stuytown, like right above East Village.
Okay, nice. Wow.
Yeah, so I've been a Manhattanite for quite some time, but for the past 8 or 9 years, I've been in Long Island City, Queens, which is one stop from Grand Central. Really interesting area. But yes, do you see yourself? I mean, this is the question. Like, do you see yourself being in New York forever?
Oh man, that is a good question.
Yeah.
Well, side note, I used to live in Astoria, and I miss Queens because Astoria was like, oh my gosh.
What do you miss the most? What do you miss the most about Queens?
Well, I'm sure if you're there saying that, maybe you're not liking it, but I have to miss. We just get more space and more bang for the buck. And I'm in a good neighborhood now, but Astoria was also like a nice, really quiet neighborhood.
Yeah.
At least where I was positioned there. And you just get more bang for the buck in terms of space.
Yeah. See, I'm not saying it because I don't want to be here anymore. I thought you were going to say the food, because the Astoria food is unbeatable. You have everything.
Like Greek food and all that. Yeah.
I'm in Long Island City, so if my wife and I are ever like, date night, let's go out, it is Astoria, because we just know we're going to have so many more options, way more culture, things like that. But my other question for you, you're in New York, and you said, this is like a huge moment for you when you said, I'm going to now, quit my full-time job. What were you doing before you were a creator, if you don't mind telling us?
Of course, yeah. So immediately before, so I worked in TV for about 8 years, various different jobs in TV. It's when I went to school for like video and just wanted to work in film and TV. So I moved to New York with the wife, and did all sorts of different jobs in TV. Ultimately ended up, I was working in post-production for House Hunters International on HGTV, and worked there for 5 years, had a number of different promotions to roles. I was the post-production coordinator. So I was on the team of people sort of in charge of managing all the edit teams.
Wow.
And that's where I was for the transition to the pandemic era, which was like it's a whole long story. But yeah, that's what I was doing immediately before.
If you were in this like post-production world, I'm sure, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit later, but I was wondering, like, your videos are clearly not just you. It's you with someone filming. And I'm assuming that, moving into a content creation world, when you're coming from a post-production world, editing, quality, both audio and video, scene work, that's probably all very, very important to you, I would assume.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, so let's talk about what you do. Because I love your answer about what you do. You're like, I'm a content creator, I'm a comedian, but I'm just going to say it, man. My favorite thing, I watch you walk through, which I'm assuming is Central Park, public area, and you're fake farting and catching people's reactions. How I have to know, and by the way, before anyone goes, click away, we're talking about 500,000 subscribers. We're talking about a couple hundred on Instagram as well, I believe. We're talking about
Yeah.
success. We're talking about it's working. The fact that you're able to do comedy, leave the full-time field, 9 to 5 field, to move in to these. I was actually I'm glad you said it. I was a little scared about using the word pranks because I know sometimes prank video can mean so many things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a whole, but I don't think you can get, to use a very YouTube-y term, I don't think you can get any more niche down than you are.
Yeah,
so
that's a great point.
How did that happen? Obviously, you're coming from a creative world. You call yourself a comedian, but you've created a very specific shtick, world that you create. I have a few scenarios in my mind. You and a buddy are like, we think this would be funny. Let's just go have fun. And it just becomes a thing. Or maybe anywhere from that all the way up to you're sitting there with pen and paper graphing out, this is how I'm going to create a career out of fake farting. So can you please, where on that spectrum, can you please tell me, maybe it's all of it or some of it, but how it happened?
Yeah, that is another interesting question that man. So basically, I like what you said about the word prank as having a negative association, and like the things that annoy people about that, they annoy me too, where it's like the stuff that a lot of stuff that people do with they think they're gonna get viral is they go up and see how quickly they can just make people upset,
Yeah.
And I've never, I just can't stand that stuff. So I've always sort of dealt with the whole oh yeah, you make pranks. I'm always immediately having to defend it. Like, no. Like, I just want to make people laugh. So specifically with the fart thing, that was, I can't believe here we are talking about this in a professional way, but
you were job, by the way. Your job,
in the world of content creation, it's the internet's a crazy place, and only getting bigger and better. I used to do all sorts of different things where I go up and ask people silly questions or this and that, and just stuff that I would find funny, and then I have to give credit to where credit's due. The whole gag of the fart joke, look, fart humor is literally the most purest, oldest form of comedy known to mankind. So I can't take credit for the comedy of the fart.
There's literally a joke. My friend, I can't believe I'm remembering this. My brother, I was just on a trip with my brother, and he brought up that there is a fart joke in Dances with Wolves.
Oh, really?
Where Kevin Costner is sitting there writing in his journal. A cowboy, I assume, is across from him, completely drunk. And as he's writing in his journal, the cowboy turns, farts, and goes, "Put that in your book," and then goes to sleep. And so, I
did not know that.
Great pull by me. But yes, it is the purest form of comedy. It's been around forever. We've been laughing at it since we were kids. Please continue. You're right.
Yeah. And to back that up, I actually heard the oldest written joke in human history, which predates I don't know, tens of thousands of years or something. I don't know. Some ancient cave, they found a hieroglyphic, and it was a fart joke. It was the daughter sat upon her dad's lap and farted, and there's drawings and hieroglyphics and stuff. And literally
Great.
It's the most purest, wholesome form of comedy of all time. Specifically, there was a guy, I'm trying to think of who, I don't know his name, but there was someone doing it on MTV in the 80s, 90s or something. Just sort of had a fart machine or whoopee cushion or something like that. And then I have to give credit where credit's due. Jack Bagel, he invented the thing you squeeze, the pooter. And he was uploading videos in 2007, 2008 on YouTube, fart pranks, right?
Who is this again?
His name's Jack Vale.
Okay.
And so he was the first one to sort of do it, or to bring it to the internet. I was doing all sorts of different things, hidden camera stuff, going up to people, asking people silly questions. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I want to try a fart prank. And so I gave credits to Jack and everything. But I wanted to put my own spin on it. So I tried to do like I just did like really over the top, like jumping off benches, like kicking out my leg and just doing really over the top silly stuff with it. So because he in his videos he pretty much just goes into Walmart and Target and stuff and just kind of just squeezes it. But I tried to add a whole like layer of comedy to it. Basically, among my videos, if I ever did a fart prank one, those ones I just found out I was really good at, that they did really well. I mean, yes, yeah, it's a long, weird journey, but there are some big Facebook pages like Unilad and some other ones like Viral Thread. They started sharing my videos, and I was like, oh wow, these are getting like millions of views. And this is back when I had, I don't know, like a few thousand subscribers or something.
Yeah.
And that that started putting me on the map, and I quickly became like, oh, people like that and just want to see that. So I started sort of niching down. The whole like fart thing isn't something that I'm obsessed with. It's just something that this is really working. It clearly resonates with people. It's universal, and it's the perfect way to, like, I don't know, it's always funny.
It's always funny.
And my whole like bread and butter with it is a fart is funny, and no matter what, it's like what I try to add an extra layer of comedy to it, where the real comedy is something that I'm doing or something that's happening, like making it look accidental. Like I just did this one in the video from last week where I like fall off a fence, like, oh, in front of this whole group of pretty girls, and then like rip a huge one, and like that. So it's like funny because it's like an extra layer of embarrassment. So I try to always I find my own voice with it, basically.
My current favorite, and I actually wanted to know what your favorite of yours is, but I was, I was like just doing some prep work for getting to have a conversation with you, because I do prep. I'm a professional, okay?
Love it.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and to your point, like to kind of take that a little further, it's never just like you said, joke's over. It's farting with attitude, which I just giggle at that, but the farting with eye contact.
Yes.
And there's three scenes in that that just kill me. One, I think it's two young ladies, something like sitting on a rock. Great camera work because you are out of focus. The fart happens. They turn towards you behind them.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You look them directly in the eye. You come into focus, and then they're just like, what is happening? They turn back away, and you go out of focus. The second one is you're up on a rock. You make the fart sound. Everyone turns, and someone actually says, "Was that you?" And you don't even say a word. You just look down and go,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And then number three is you actually scared a woman, not like, angrily, but you make the noise, and she goes, beside you. And I'm just, so it's already funny, but I see what you mean by adding in your own little, like you said, your voice. But what's your, out of all of those videos, you obviously have to be creative to keep it fresh. Which one's your favorite?
Oh man.
Or pick a couple maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. Among the things I do in my little repertoire of fartistry, I have to say it's probably the eye contact. That's like, and I mean, it seems to be a fan favorite too.
Because who does that?
It's an original idea I did. It dates back to, I did a video called Top 10 Ways to Fart, where I'm just like, I literally went to the park and I'm like, I had like 4 things in mind that I was filming with my wife, and I was like, all right, it'd be really funny if I just sat next to these people sitting there and just like stared at them and like maintained eye contact as I did it. And I tried to specifically do it as they looked at me. So there was a moment, because so they just are so caught off guard, and then keep the staring going. And then in the comments of that video, everyone was like, oh, the eye contact was so funny. You need to do more of that. And so then I did a video farting with eye contact. And that, I don't know how many views it has now, but that one did really well.
It's a lot.
Farting with attitude that's just the name I called what I did to stand apart from like Jag fail, or people who are just going into stores and just doing it and catching people's reactions. That works really well, but I wanted to not just do that. I wanted to add a whole layer of like my own style to it. So Farting with Attitude was the name of like, okay, just the silly flair that I add, the humor bagel flair of just silliness. And then I keep finding more and more stuff as I go. Like I never would have thought I would be able to discover this many things in fart humor, but it's
kind of like you said, it's fartistry. So let's discuss. You said one of my questions was, I was really interested to find out who is doing your camera work. Is it still your wife, or do you have like a team now?
That's good. Another good question. So yeah, my wife filmed. She filmed up until I want to say 2 years ago, and she would still, but she's really busy and like basically. And there's been a few people that I've paid, but my go-to guy right now is actually a fellow YouTuber and one of my best friends, Gilstrap TV, which if fans of mine are watching this, they know who he is, but he's another guy doing this full time. And we met through doing this along the way, like sort of befriended each other through Twitter DMs over the years, and then we started collabing, and then him and I have made a very fruitful relationship in that like we can take film trips together where I film him for his videos, he films for mine.
Oh wow!
Because I know exactly how it works and like how to best capture the moment, and it's like a very specific language that we both speak really well. So
yeah,
any videos of mine in the past 2 years were filmed by him pretty much.
That's really cool.
Of some shots where my wife did film, or I paid someone to film, or but yeah, right. It's just I film for him, he films for me, and then unintentionally along the way with that, like our audiences have sort of merged, I guess. We're like, oh, they like to see us together because we vlog at the end of the videos, and we've kind of created this little brotherhood of whatever it is that we do.
That's
Anyways.
amazing. I love that. The collaboration in the content creator space has been so amazing, and I have not found yet someone who doesn't want to see someone else grow. Like I was talking just last week. I'm a musician. My full-time job is I'm a worship pastor at a church. I have been since I was like 13. Actually, that's where I got connected with your friend Jordan. Shout out to Jordan.
Right.
She was on my other podcast. 2 podcasts, not a big deal, bro. It's not a big deal. I'm just out here doing it.
Love it.
And we had a really cool conversation. But I'm talking to a guy who owns a very popular guitar pedal company, and his company is great at getting their stuff out there via YouTube, Instagram, really cool clips, really well done videos. They're not just like, we create great products, we're music nerds. And even him talking about, competition in the market, he said, there's obviously we all want to sell our product, but there's just not a lot of us trying to kick out anybody else. There's very few of us that do that. And I find the same thing in the content world, where people are obviously trying to get done what they need to get done, but they want to bring people with them. And to be honest, it's one of the reasons why I've been able to have interviews like this one. And for those of you listening, watching, I'm a guy that's waiting to get, counting down to 3,000 subscribers. Yay. Huge deal. Should be celebrated. Yeah. Talking to someone 500,000 subs, it's like, yeah, as long as we can get it on the schedule, let's talk about what I do. Let's talk about what we do. And I feel like, obviously, if you search far enough, you'll find, somebody mean out there or whatever, but it feels like a super collaborative space. So to find out that the person you're shooting with is like, well, they're not just shooting me, I'm also shooting with them. It feels like a good partnership. And for I feel like you want to add to that, so you go right ahead.
Oh yeah, no, what you're saying is so true. And it's funny because specifically with Gilstrap, which is just his last name. It's funny. That's his channel name is Gilstrap TV, but his real name's Derek. It's funny because people think we are like competitors and stuff. And like, I guess our channels do. I mean, it's like, yeah, well, are you gonna watch his or mine? But like
Yeah.
all of our videos like get recommended to each other, and yeah, because we're in like the weird specific niche, and it's funny because people may discover me first, and then like I found this other guy who's copying you, and like, oh no, like we both are just do that. And I filmed that video, and or if they discovered him first, they'll be like, you're just
Wow.
copying Gilstrap, and it's like, no, he filmed my video.
Yeah.
And we're just like doing, and we have our own specific things that we do that like are kind of our own joke that we've evolved. Where it's like I won't like do his specific gags with it, and he won't do mine. But yeah, it's a very collaborative space. And it's, I mean, when we film with someone, it's hours and hours and hours we spend out doing this. So we've gotten to know each other really well. And, yeah, I'm super thankful because it's also it's worked well for me, in like the bagel make, I guess, because rather than paying someone, it's like, oh, I'll just film your stuff, and it's the perfect trade. So I'm really, really lucky that, thank you, YouTube, for bringing me cool friends.
I think that's really cool. Yeah, I think that's really cool because, like, I could just see you, cut scene to you one day, just experiencing a tough area of your life or whatever, and going, oh, but my friend was there, Gilstrap. Well, how did you meet him? Well, we farted on screen together. It was really cool. Made awesome videos. I'm just really close to him. But I think there is that partnership where. I had an interview with a guy named Aaron Tuning, who's been in the content creation game for a long time. He was on Vine, like he blew up on Vine.
The name is familiar. Okay.
You would recognize him. He's hilarious. Yeah. And he would say, like, yeah, back in the days when Vine was actually a thing, I mean, it was crazy getting, going to like events with other Viners, because we were all just making videos for each other. There was no real competition. We all just were dying, laughing, contributing to each other's stuff. And then allowing others just to call it their own. So there's something beautiful about that. So to find out that you're actually, shooting with a buddy, that's so cool. While being in New York, you could go out and just hire somebody just like that. You guys make the choice to work together. That's amazing. And I think for the nerds out there, I do want to ask, this question just makes me laugh. Like, what is the audio situation that you guys are working with?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not super complicated, but like, I'm like, wow, that was a really well EQ'd fart. Like, what mics are they using? What's going on? Like, how are you guys doing that?
No, I appreciate this question because that is something you touched on this earlier in a question, but another thing I try to do to stand out is to have really good production quality. I mean, it's as silly as the videos are. It's just like, people laughing at someone who farted. Or farted. But I do try to stand out from all the punks going into Target trying to make people mad and, the bad type of prank. So I try to, like, I film on a really nice camera and like use nice audio and editing. But yes, to answer your question about the audio, so yeah, I wear a wireless mic, and based off of the fart toy that I'm using, there's a few different ones. I will put the microphone right next to the source of the sound. So you're hearing it basically, you're hearing what they hear, but you're hearing it like point blank pretty much.
That's
close
hilarious.
To point blank.
That's so funny, man. Do you know what mic you're actually using? Do you know what it's called?
Oh yeah, it's the Sony. Let's see, I just got a new one. It's the Sony one. I used to use Sennheiser, which was great. But over time, I had it for like 8 years, and then something became tangled where it's always like. But now I use the Sony. I can't think of what it's called. It's like $600 or $700, I want to say. But it does the job really well.
What about cameras? What do you guys use?
Cameras, I'm using the Sony A6600.
Oh, cool.
Which is in their Sony Alpha line. At one point I did a ton of research into, all right, what's best for something as small and compact that doesn't look too obtrusive. And people are like, oh, like being filmed, it's just kind of one of these things, but it packs a really big punch, and I'm a huge fan. The annoying thing is it shoots in like flat profiles, which this is like, I'm a little bit of a gear geek.
Oh, cool.
So, and I sense that you are as well, based off of
Yeah.
your channel stuff, which I love. But you do have to color correct everything because it shoots in flat profile tones. I've tried with it on auto, and it just does not look good.
Yeah.
So everything I have to color correct and make look nice and pretty. But I've gotten so fast with it, and that is something that this is a kind of a good overarching mentality. It's like, well, if it was really easy to do this, then everybody would be doing it. And so
Yeah.
anything where that's just something I tell myself, like if it takes a long time to edit or get good reactions, I'm like, you know what? If this was easy, then everyone would be doing it. So it's like like to pat myself on the back sometimes, like, you know what? I'll put in the work, make it good, and yeah. So the color correction, and all that stuff.
I am a gear nerd. Working at, for those that don't know, like, working at, doing what I do, like working at a church, a lot of times we tend to wear lots of hats when it comes to like, learning production audio. During COVID, everything was shut down. We had to figure out what live streaming even was. So I've kind of become a semi-professional at live streaming. And I remember the day that I got serious enough about content creation that I was like, honey, I think I need to actually buy like a real camera, like my own camera. And I went with something very, very, like, I went with Sony, the ZV-E10, very like about as professional as you can get from like a base level interchangeable lenses. I got a nice, in my opinion, nice like Sigma lens on here. And I do love the gear, because like when you can tell the difference between someone who, like you said, walks into a Target and throws an iPhone in somebody's face versus someone who's actually trying to create quality. And so for both audio and video, I mean, for something as silly as what you do, you take it really seriously. So when it comes to how the video looks and how the video sounds, what is I guess when it comes to taking what you do seriously, are you sitting down with like a content calendar going, okay, Monday is wet farts and Tuesday is fart with attitude version 3? Like, are you more of a, I'm going to just go out there and do it? Because there are days where I'm coming in here and I have a script and I've got a teleprompter in front of me, and I am filming very structured, and all my work is, most of my work is pre-production. But there are days also where I have an idea, I sit in front of a camera, I press record, and just magic happens. So what is, if you're taking all of your gear seriously, what is the prep work, the pre-production like for you? How serious is that?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of everything across the board. One thing that I think my audience doesn't really necessarily know, I guess this doesn't really matter, but I batch film a lot of my content. So like I'll film for, like if my buddy's in town and we're filming, we'll film for like 2.5 weeks straight. Like every other day, no days off. Like I'll film for him, next day he films for me. And it's a grind. It's like constant. So in that period, so as I approach that filming period, I'll be sort of thinking, okay, what do I want to do? I want to make sure I get enough of, like the eye contact one is a series that I do. It's something that, the Humor Bagel audience looks forward to very much. So like I have to be able to like have moments, and it's hard to film those things. It is so hard to like get, good reaction is one thing, but also like to kind of orchestrate, okay, where are people sitting, because it's real organic moments. So that's something I like the series of things that I do, I'm sort of thinking about in the background, but I just try to get try to make the best use of the time I have. And so beyond that, not a whole lot of thoughts go into it. I just kind of keep a mental clock going, okay, am I doing something too much, or is it still funny? And ultimately the best thing is just people's reactions. Like, are people reacting to it? And then that's sort of just like the filming life. And then the editing life that's more, a lot of more work goes into, because it's like, we get hundreds and hundreds of clips, and then it's like, okay, how do I best strategize the posting strategy, this and that. And right now, sort of, I guess to just piggyback off this, you can cut me off if you need to, but the right now I'm still a one-man band. There's been I flirted with the idea. One of my best friends was actually going to invest in my channel, and he was going to basically. This is, I mean, it's a whole long story. I'll probably spare you, but he was going to invest in my channel and like hire editors and this and that, and it ended up not working out because he was just too busy. He has his own business, but he actually edited a few videos. And I learned through that process that like, oh wait, no, I ended up like re-editing myself and like,
Yeah.
and so I have a hard time like letting go. But I'm just now, it's an interesting time because I'm just now reaching a point where I'm ready to maybe like hire an editor and start handing some things off. But it's just like, oh, it's such a scary thing to me because I like to have control over it. So I'm learning this about myself because I just don't want to lose the quality and I know there's endless success stories of like, oh, if you can scale up and hire someone, then your business will only continue to grow. But I'm like, but I don't want to sacrifice quality. And also it's a very specific, what I do is a very specific thing. Like I'll remember, okay, filming this and that, and I'll kind of have like, now I don't want to put all of my best clips in one video. I kind of need to spread it out. And so there's kind of a mental, I just have a memory of what I did. So an editor that I were to hire, I have to have like many conversations with them and just kind of, that's a hurdle that one day potentially this year I want to look to cross. So if you're watching this, you want edit information, hit me up.
I 2 or 3 days ago, I interviewed a guy named Shama who does a lot of comedy stuff. If you're in the church space, he does a lot of church parody stuff. He's hilarious. This is so niche to many people, but I don't know if you'll get. He like remixed the Veggie Tales song. That's where he blew up. That guy. And
that's awesome. I might have heard that.
He kind of alluded to what you're saying. He said, "Listen, you can get better at editing. You can get better at this. You can get better at that. But there is a hunch that you kind of have to have for what will be successful, and you're either right or wrong." And so I understand what you're saying about you shoot all these clips, and I've been there too, where I'm making a video and I'm doing take after take, and I just remember in my mind that was good, but that's hard to let go of. And I think you're in a really good space there because one of the first YouTubers I fell in love with was Casey Neistat, Likely Story.
Oh, yeah. Legend,
and he even talked about I tried to give away the editing, and it was just so hard for me because I wanted it to be quality. So I think you're in a good space there, and to know, it's even encouraging for me because, like you said, I'm not a creator who's sitting around going, man, I want someone to do all this for me. Like I like this. I enjoy creating. Yeah. And it's different. It's a difference to say, hey, it's time for me to grow, so I'm going to make a hire, as opposed to someone going, I can't wait to pass this off, and it's just a money funnel. You know what I mean? So I think you're in a really good spot where you're enjoying the creation, and it's actually difficult for you to let go because you want the quality to be good. It's really encouraging to me because there are days where I'm like, it's encouraging to know that someone out there who has made this their full-time job, you've still got your hands in the mud, making the garden grow, per se, or whatever. I just think that's encouraging. That's really cool to hear, man. I don't know. I'm kind of just thankful for that whole thing you said. I appreciate
thankful for that. Yeah, and that's something that I think about a lot too. And Casey Neistat, for example, he edits his own stuff, which I think is what you were getting at, and like I kind of like to think about what he says about all that, which is this whole there's this whole like hustle culture with social media where it's just like scale up as quick as possible, but I just think there's something to like, well, you don't have to, like, if you can make it work, yourself, if you know what you want, you can edit it. But yeah, I go back and forth because like at the same time there will come a time where I'm like, I could be filming more while someone's editing, where I'm like, wait a minute, and then it's about time and effort and stuff. But
I think that's
right now this is working.
Yeah, I think that's just like the tipping point, as they say. But there is like what you're saying, like there is again, there's just something about what you said, like this is hard work. And it's so crazy because I tell in so many like conversations I could have like this, I tell this story. My son got way into YouTube, and we're a family that we try to give healthy amounts of screen time, and we don't want our kids just on their phones all the time, and they have phones simply because we need to contact them. One of them takes a bus to school. One of them walks a few blocks to school. We've got a third kid that one day will go to school. I mean, yeah, there's 3 kids in New York. It's a party. But he, my oldest got COVID for like the second time, and we were like, no.
Oh, no.
And he was in his room. And what did he do in his room? He sat there and with permission just made shorts all day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
that's
he
awesome.
went, first of all, he hit 1,000 subs. And then a couple weeks later, he hit 13,000.
Whoa.
And super jealous, but also super proud of him. Now he still has to get, his watch hours or his shorts views or whatever to get the monetization status, but he's jacked. And and the reason why he did it, a lot of people would look at what he did and say, man, it's just like silly little videos, but he put work in. He actually talked to me about it and said, I researched what was popular. I knew that people were loving POV videos, and just started using all of this like YouTube language back at me that I had been telling him. And I'm like, this is a strategy. Keep doing this and you will grow.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong. It's just, it simply is putting in the work. And then sometimes you strike gold, but you have to continue putting in that work. And it's been cool to watch just like your journey with that. It's been really, really cool. And it's really encouraging to hear.
Man.
I did want to ask you this to kind of like, as we're kind of, wrapping up here, what would you say? And you've kind of gotten in this a little bit, like talking about like batch recording and talking about putting the work in, talking about when is the right time to hire an editor. These are literally all the questions I wanted to ask you. But I want to ask you 2 questions. One's a real one and one's a silly one. I had this, and we'll start with silly because I just had, as I'm watching your videos, I had this revelation that if I'm standing in a crowded space and you said it earlier, you fell over a fence in front of a bunch of pretty girls. If I heard a loud fart, I would turn around and just in my mind, being a human person who's flawed, I would think, the person I'm about to encounter and yell at is going to be some gross dude. But there is this, when you talk about production quality, when these people turn to see who is literally farting on them, it's this young, handsome dude. And you can see in their face this like, not only did I not expect to get farted on, but I'm also like, this is not what I expected. This is not what I expected. What are the thoughts you feel coming from people, or what are the thoughts you even have that first moment when they turn? Like sometimes you walk by and it's like a drive-by, by, but sometimes, like you said, you're looking directly at them. What is that interaction like?
Oh man, it's, first of all, I love it. I mean, you have to love that part of it if you're doing it like this.
Yeah.
But like, it's the best feeling in the world to like make someone laugh. It's like a drug, honestly. It's like, so I love the feeling and the awkwardness that ensues because I know it's really funny and they haven't realized it yet, maybe. But I don't know how to describe it. It's just kind of like you feel like I don't know, like there's this weird feeling like when I'm about to do something where it's like, and you're looking at who you want to try to get or whatever, the victim. No. But it's like you have this like sort of like, oh, like I'm so excited about this. Like they have no idea what's about to happen, and it's just like a really funny feeling. And so when I do it, I don't know, like maybe it's silly to even think about it this much, but like it's just kind of like a good kind of like a little rush of adrenaline. And then
little rush of adrenaline.
Because it's like oh like you are so like, especially like some people laugh so hard they like they literally wet themselves. Like there's clips I've not been able to use because the people have wet their
Of
pants.
course.
Yeah, like many of the clips that you can tell that, oh wow, they're trying not to wet their pants.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's funny. I don't know, I can't even remember what your question was, but
You kind of hit on it. It's just that it's like it's these videos where the most awkward thing in the world has happened, but two people look at each other and there's just this moment of like, you know what's going on, and they're clearly a perfect example. You're standing by this gentleman, you make the noise, he's filming, he turns and looks at you, and it's one of the eye contact videos, and then he apologizes. He turns and he goes,
yeah,
oh, and then and you're looking right at him, and he just goes, oh, sorry. And I'm like, why are you apologizing? So I just kind of, it's so fun to hear about that interaction. Because one of my favorite channels is Think Media, guy named I got to are you familiar with them?
Yeah, they do sort of like YouTube
growth strategy
content. Yeah.
Well, I got to interview Omar from that channel, who's just like a content creation guru. Like the stuff he like I literally watched his video about the settings for the camera because I'm just like, I don't want to learn all this, just tell me what to do. And of course he had a video about it. And you know, their big phrase when they start a video is, you got to just press record, punch fear in the face, like, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you take that to the next level. You're not only pressing record, you're pressing record. It's hard for people to stand in front of a camera and look down the lens, but you're not even looking down the lens, you're looking directly at strangers. And it's just incredible. I'm
out in the wild, man.
You're just in the wild. You're making it happen. So my last question for you, thank you so much for sharing all of that. Before we hear about where people should find you, what they should look up, and what you're excited about for the future, pretend you're talking to a YouTube creator who wants to grow. What are the things, if you're sitting down with someone who's like really saying like, okay, listen, we may be in two different niches, but like, tell me what I need to know. What am I missing? What should I not be, or what should I start doing? What should I stop doing? What should I continue to do? Pretend you're the guru. What's your advice to creators out there?
And I'm trying to think of something just to say that's not been cliche, said a million times, but there is a lot of truth to what people are saying. And that is, just start making stuff. If you're starting off, like accept that like your first several videos are just going to be bad, but like you have to get those out of the way so you can get better. Like if you wait 2 years to make videos, you're going to make 2 bad videos 2 years from now. But if in 2 years from now, if you been making videos, you'll start getting better at what you do and start finding your own voice more. And so to that extent, I'd say there's no shame in like starting making videos that are already sort of a trend. So you can kind of work out the kinks, get going with the flow, and then over time find your own voice, find what works well, what you enjoy doing. And so just start making content is just start making stuff and like make bad stuff. And as in the quality, not like a mature audience stuff. And then to really stand out, I would say try to through making your videos, find your own voice, and then around that you can sort of create your own unique audience, like niche down. And like with my thing with the fart prank is nothing new, but I try to find my own voice in it. As silly as it is, like I try to like have my own style with it, where like no one else is gonna do this, or at least not in the same way. So find your own voice, and then just start making stuff. And then there's other ways too to strategize, like content and like shorts and like repurposing, but that's a whole like the nitty gritty of it. But just as a surface level, just like make content, find out what you like, and then I would say this is a long answer, but this is a complicated question.
It is. It's pretty vast. I know.
Yeah. I would say, don't worry for a long time. Don't worry about views, money.
Yep.
Like, don't, I think if you're getting into it with the goal of like, oh, I want to like do this for a living, it's like you're going to get burnt out because you're going to do it for 2 years. And then you're like, oh, wow, I'm like, this is not working. No one's watching. Like the income's not growing. So just you have to enjoy what you're doing with it. Or find something in it that like, oh, this is creatively fulfilling you.
Yeah.
In itself, without the money aside, because like if you enjoy that, then you'll avoid burnout. But I think a lot of people get burnt out because they realize it's not working.
Yeah.
And I guess to bring it back full circle to me, I very unintentionally did it the quote unquote right way, because I never thought in a million years like this is what I would. I didn't even when I first started uploading videos, I didn't really understand that you could be paid. I'm like, I think I knew it because the YouTube's partner program existed or something, but I was like, I'll never get enough views to be paid. I just want to go out and make these silly videos and things that my friends would find funny. But I remember there came a point I was like, oh wow, like I made 15 cents this month, hey, like
yeah.
And then when I first passed like the $100 threshold, I was like, whoa, like when YouTube finally can pay you. And it just blew my mind. But I was like, oh,
Yeah.
right, well, that'll never happen again. And it kind of just kept going. And then, so ultimately, I think that's a healthy mindset to have as a creator. Again, I wasn't trying to do it that way, but just, I lucked out because that is, I think, a good tool for success and to avoid burnout is to just kind of don't, like, I mean, people just like, will watch Logan Paul and be like, I want to like be like Logan Paul, and then start making videos, and you're just going to get burned out.
I would like to go on record as saying I do not want to be like Logan Paul, except for the height and the hair. That's what I want. That's all
true.
I want.
I guess yeah, maybe not the best example to use, but
no. It's not your example.
Kid, like, yeah.
It's actually a good example because people are like, I want to be this, and it's just not going to happen. And I also cannot resonate enough with what you just said. I was so obsessed with getting monetized, which I am, that it's important. Yeah, it's important. The subscriber count and the views is important, but then that happens, and I begged all of my friends to subscribe. On my birthday, I would post on Facebook, subscribe to my channel for my birthday, hit 1,000 subs, and none of them watched my videos. And it's because they weren't interested in my content. They're just my buddy, So I was the example of what you're talking about, that if you start off right, it's hard, but the reward is greater. And now I find myself in that place where I'm course correcting. So that advice, that's phenomenal. In my opinion, that's phenomenal advice. And I think that I'm with you. I think that a lot of the advice out there is the same stuff over and over, but there's a reason why it's the same stuff over and over.
Yeah, there's a big truth to that, especially with the burnout thing. Like I mean, I've seen creators like in all sorts of different genres where it's like, oh, like you can kind of tell like they're not fully, or they're just trying to do something that is good, whether it's good or bad. Like it's just you're gonna get burnt out.
Yeah, it's hard to pivot. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the one thing I wanted to add to that was there does come a point where it's really helpful to niche down. Finding your voice, finding what you like, and then like getting in a niche, and then seeing what the people in that niche are doing at the top level, and try to like somehow like take pieces of that and make your own voice with it, basically.
Yeah, I'm in that place as well. I know for a fact that I need to become. I was talking to a guy about this yesterday, who's just like, I know if I got way more granular, vocab word, with what I want to do, I know it would pay off more. But I'm okay staying a little bit more broad because I'm still getting the clicks, I'm still getting the views. If it ever becomes a problem, though, I know I can do that, and I'm kind of in that place as well, where I'm, obviously still figuring things out, and YouTube pays me dozens of dollars. Dozens, bro. So I'm not struggling. Still have a full-time job, of course. So that, I mean, I think that advice is timeless, especially.
Yeah. And there's no shame in dozens of, there's no shame, like to be able to like do something like, you understand the joy of like, you get to like make videos, put them on the internet and you get paid. It's like, what? That still blows my mind. I still am like, what?
Yeah,
like,
that's
I love
so cool.
this. And so, yeah, there's no shame in that. I still remember like getting 15 cents from YouTube. I was like, oh my gosh, like what? So yeah, there's no shame in like, yeah, it's just like if you enjoy what you're doing, then you're crushing it.
It's insane. Well, I want to finish by simply asking you, where do you want people to follow you? Obviously, you have both Instagram and YouTube. I'd love for you to plug those. And then is there anything you're working on in the anything coming up in the future that you're excited about that you want to share with us?
So yeah, you can find me across all the socials at Humor Bagel, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, obviously, and even Facebook, which I'm still kind of figuring out, but I realize there's also potential on Facebook. I'm like, what? So
yes, I heard that recently as well. But I was actually Think Media that said we're actually blowing up on Facebook. I was like, oh, you know, so now I'm like re-uploading to Facebook. So anyway, yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, that's a very new thing to me. But but as far as, so yeah, you can find me at Humor Bagel, all the platforms. Except Twitter is the Humor Bagel because someone already took Humor Bagel and they got a ban from out. I don't know what happened. It wasn't me. So the Humor Bagel on Twitter. But as far as for the future, that's a good question. Immediately right now, when it comes to just the fart stuff, this has not been announced on YouTube until this very moment. But one day I'll announce it on my channel, which I'll be excited for. But
exclusive.
I have my own. This is a crazy thing. I have my own fart toy in the works, and I'm very, very excited about it.
Oh, so that's great!
It's a long ways off. I don't know if it's going to be ready. I don't think it's going to be ready for this holiday season, but holiday season 2024 is definitely a goal. So that's kind of something I'm excited about. I don't want to say too much about it because it's,
of course.
And there's also my buddy Gilstrap is creating one of his, which is a totally different style. Like these things are going to make different noises, and I'll be able to sell his with like an affiliate link or something because I use. Right now, it's like it's nothing that you can currently buy. It's like a homemade sort of homemade DIY fart contraption that is. We have tightly sealed under wraps. Yeah,
you have a custom job fart machine, and now you're creating. Nothing out there was good enough for Humor Bagel and Gilstrap TV. You had to make your own, and now the masses get to enjoy that knowledge.
That's right. Yeah, there's other stuff out there you can buy, but yeah, the one that we use is it's a homemade thing, and I get asked in the DMs. I don't know. At least once an hour, if not like a little bit less than that. Like, what do you use to make the fart noise? And eventually I just kind of stopped answering just because I want what I say to be like, hey, okay, here's what we use. But right now it's like nothing you can buy. So one day there will be, as far as the answer your question about the future, there will be a fart product out there. So
was this something? No, well, I need to give a follow up to this. I apologize. What was this something you pursued, or was it like the some Hasbro company was like, listen, we can make you the fart machine you want? Or were you pursued about this?
That's a good question. No, I'm talking with engineers. Like actually yesterday I was on a big Zoom call with 2 engineers who they're making the mold of this is like taking it seriously, man. So and yeah, it's a long ways off, and I'm tempted to show, but I'm not going. I have a box of like round 1 of the prototypes that they sent me, the molds.
I wouldn't want to peer pressure
right now, but
I don't want to peer pressure you into anything, but a Patrick Murphy exclusive is I'm always game for anything, but I don't want to peer pressure you or get you in trouble. That's incredible, man. One of my questions I didn't get to earlier was, for a guy like me in the description of this video, I'm going to have what camera I'm using, the 3 mics I have, the lights that I'm using, a link to your channel, all of this like a affiliate type stuff. And classically, successful YouTubers will say AdSense is good, but the real career making money is in affiliate marketing and things outside of AdSense. And I was like, who on earth is going to reach out? There have to be people who have reached out to you to say, will you partner with us on this product or that thing? And I was just like, who could it be? Like, pants that hide the scent. I have no idea what's going on. But like, I did want to ask you about that. Like, what does affiliate marketing and stuff like that look like? So to know that you're actually creating your own product, even more exciting. That's so cool.
I mean, fingers crossed. It's like, I know nothing of this is a space I know nothing about, but there came a point where I was like, it's undeniable that I should be like using this opportunity to, I mean, it's my career. Like I should wow, if I had a fart toy, I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome. But I mean, one can dream, but it's like, why not? Like we can do whatever I want. There's no one telling me no. Like, so I started, and there's other stuff out there. And again, like Jack Bales, he has the pooter. I know I have sold thousands of pooters because that's like people search fart toy and that comes up.
That's amazing.
But actually, I don't even use the pooter. I haven't used it for a long time.
That's right, because you needed to get a custom job.
That's right. Yeah.
We could say that the pooter didn't cut it.
Ah, nice. Yeah. And like the pooter, there's I actually didn't even use the pooter like for a long time because there's iterations of the pooter before the pooter came out that like I think work a bit better. But I mean, it's all great. It's at the end of the day, they all do the trick. But it's about getting that quality that I like, you know. I
can't wait to get home and my wife asks me like, hey, how was today? What did you talk about in your interview? Well, honey, the pooter. So pretty important stuff. Oh, honey, you were educating children in the Bronx? Oh, that's cool too. I was talking about custom fart machines. So there we go. We're both doing important things.
Serious business.
Do you ever, just a sidebar, you are a comedian. Do you ever do stand-up?
No, that's a big thing that maybe one day, I feel like I have an itch to do it, but just the whole, like, I've never done it thing is kind of terrifying, but I would love to give it a whack one day. But I just don't know if that's my space because I do have a lot of respect for like what that is, and there's something magical about that. And my first job in TV was at the Late Show with David Letterman.
Okay.
And so I am a huge like Letterman fan, like, and just that whole actual comedy, like it is pretty intimidating to me, even though like what I do is still comedy because it makes people laugh. Like I know that, so it's comedy, but like actual stuff standing on stage is like, those guys are a different breed. One day. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I will say, you asked like what's in the future. Another thing that I really want to do, and I'm actually talking with Gilstrap about getting this going, is creating a podcast, which is like original idea. Who would have thought of that?
Who would have thought?
Which that's something where I'm like, no one needs another podcast. But at the same time, I'm like, man, they've been coming back around. Podcasts they went through an era. I feel like they annoyed everyone, and now it's just like podcasts.
No, I think it's so. I think it's so fun. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. You know, like a little bit of inside baseball, and it hasn't worked yet. But like, I just know that if YouTube is becoming more invested in podcasts, therefore, if you're creating what they are trying to push, then it just kind of gets pushed out a little bit more. Also, I'm enjoying the conversations. I'm enjoying talking about what people do. And I'm talking with all sorts of people in all sorts of different fields, but with some sort of a creation spin. On my second podcast, being a worship pastor, I'm talking with worship leaders all over that are friends of mine that have been doing this their whole life, talking about church issues and really digging into like some stuff where, I believe that, the church has struggled and we need to grow. And it's been interesting conversations. So at the very least, it's enjoyable. And I think you should do that. I'll be guest number 50. Once you get warmed up, you can bring me in, I
have to make those bad ones first, like we were saying.
Come on.
Content strategy.
Work it out.
Yeah, that, and especially now, because you can, in internet era of like repurposing stuff strategically.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of what I see on TikTok is like sound bites, 15-second sound bites
Yep.
from the podcast. Where I'm like, oh wow, like there's a huge space for a podcast, and there's this creative fulfillment in it. Because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and like, oh wow, it is a very creative space where you can talk about also any sorts of things where it's like that. I would get a lot of fulfillment from that, and obviously like set up some sort of format and have recurring segments and this and that. But one day,
that's great, man.
And I may have a podcast.
That's awesome.
Fingers crossed.
Well, thank you so much for having a conversation with me. It was a treat to hear all about your content creation journey. And maybe one day we can do it again. It was just so fun for me to hear and learn from you. Thank you so much for joining us, man. And I suggest everybody go out and follow and watch your stuff, especially the eye contact videos. Thank you for being on the podcast today, man.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Patrick. You're the man.
All right, I'll see you.
See ya.
Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget that links to everything you need can be found down in the description. And if you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing, you can always follow me on Instagram by subscribing to @PatrickMurphy. And while we're talking about subscribing, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. I'll see you in the next one. But don't forget, before you go, you should probably watch this video.